Welcome to the channel. Jimmy Cosenza here. Hope everybody's doing well. I want to wish all the veterans out there a very happy Veterans Day. We're going to dedicate tonight's show to the brave men and women that served our country, those that fought and sacrificed their life for our freedom, like these brave soldiers. Iwo Jima, one of the bloodiest battles, right? We lost just under 7,000 Marines. I want to do a special shout out to my hero, James Bell. Jimmy, named after me. I was named after him, I should say. Jimmy was killed in action February 17th, 1969. It was his turn to go on point. He was shot and killed in Quang Tri. He was 19 years old. He died on his 19th birthday. God bless my hero, James Bell. Vietnam was the longest, most violent war in U.S. history. God bless all the men and women that fought and served in Vietnam. Going back, before that we got Korea. My father was a gung-ho, proud Marine. He actually volunteered for the Marine Corps a year too early. He had to come back. He had to wait. My father fought at the Chosin Reservoir in Korea. He lost several of his toes to frostbite because it was so cold. And my dad felt every young man should become a Marine. If it wasn't for my beautiful Italian mother, my dad would have made me join the Marine Corps. But God bless my father, a true hero, a Korean War combat veteran. My father was in the Marine Corps, another Korean War veteran, James Turk Torello. My dad said that Jimmy was the toughest Marine out of all the Marines, and there was tough kids from all over the country. Kids from Detroit, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Boston, New York City, all tough kids that grew up in street gangs. My dad said Turk Torello was by far the toughest. After the war, after the Marine Corps, years later, my dad found out that Turk Torello was an upcoming boss of the Chicago outfit. It blew my dad's mind. My dad had no idea. Sadly, though, due to health issues like Joe Ferriola, Turk's life was cut too short. He died, I think, in his early 50s. But this would have been a great leader for Chicago outfit. But this gentleman is a Korean War combat veteran, James Turk Torello. It's because of him that piqued my interest in Chicago outfit. Once I found out my dad was friends with James Turk Torello, an upcoming boss of the mob, that's when I started reading all the books, all the mob books. I started with the Romer books. Bill Romer, FBI agent, would write a couple pretty good books. Then after the books, my first trial was in 1992. When I went to my first trial, that was it. I was hooked. I went to 25 plus federal trials. So it's because of James Turk Torello that piqued my interest in the Chicago mob. Another combat veteran of the Chicago outfit, because Chicago outfit had a lot. I don't have time to name them all, but one that comes to mind is Joaquin Feliz, World War II hero. I mean, this gentleman, I'll never forget it. I seen him at his sentencing after he was convicted in the Good Ship Lollipop trial. I'll never, ever forget it. He came out in shackles. He was in a blue jumpsuit. He was raising his voice, telling the judge he didn't get a fair trial. He felt he was up against a 3-4-headed monster with the prosecution team, their lawyers, the FBI, and the government's rats and snitches that lied on the stand. Guys like B.J. Jehoda that testified against him. If it wasn't for B.J. Jehoda's testimony, Joaquin Feliz would have been found not guilty. There would have been reasonable doubt there. But Rocky also reminded federal black judge that he's a World War II paratrooper. He fought against one of Hitler's toughest regimes. Sadly, it fell on deaf ears. She gave him life in prison, slammed him. Me personally, any combat veteran, I'm going to cut them some slack in their sentence. What do you think? I want you guys to check out Tales from the Patch. If you like neighborhood stories of the Chicago outfit, a friend of mine, Mary, wrote her first book. You can easily buy this on Amazon. Lovers, Liars, and Clowns, Tales from the Patch. Great stories about Joe Lombardo, Frankie Collada, Jack Cerrone, even Bozo the Clown. So check it out. And if you guys are looking for a job or want to change your career, check out Career Empower, one of the best recruiters in the business, and let me know what you guys think. Now let's get into it, right? Government informants, right? Average salary right now is around $85,000, plus health, medical, dental, free housing, keeps them out of jail, free location fees, weekly, monthly salaries. They get their freedom. They get to get up there and lie, embellish. If it wasn't for the government's informants, most of the cases I went to, the defense would have been found not guilty. So we're going to get into it. November, my November rat of the month was actually a Berwyn cop, right? Another corrupt cop. I can't tell you how many corrupt cops there were in this city of Chicago and the surrounding suburbs, the vast majority of them. So you got James Fermato, right? Right around 2004, his life was kind of falling apart. I seen him testify in court. He was a nervous wreck. He was part of a crew, a burglary crew, that consisted of co-defendants Mike Sarno, who he alleged was the boss of the crew. Mike Sarno was out on bail. And I did a story on the Sarno trial and the Outlaw Motorcycle Club trial. And what was interesting about that trial, there was definitely an alignment, a connection between the mob and the motorcycle club. So Sarno allegedly was the head of that trial. He was out on bond. You got to kind of talk to him during breaks, make small talk. Real friendly guy. His wife and family and a couple close friends were in court. Alex Salerno was in court there to support him. Now you had his co-defendant, high-ranking outlaw motorcycle associate, club member Mark Polchin. Vast majority of the charges were against him. He had a Goldberg Jewelers, which allegedly was a front where they would fleece a lot of the stolen goods. And then one of my favorite co-defendants, you got Samuel Volpendenzel. Speaking of Veterans Day, happy Veterans Day, Sam. World War II Navy hero. This guy was under attack in a boat. You got to read the story to appreciate. He swam under the boat and saved the lives of several other sailors. That alone, I would have cut him some slack. He came out in court. He was in custody along with his son. He came out in the orange prison jumpsuit in a wheelchair. He didn't even care to dress up for court. He would fall asleep at times. He would laugh out loud at times. He was actually caught on tape. But check out the story I did with the Mike Sarno trial when you guys get a chance. But he was part of the crew along with his son and the Polish guy. So the corrupt cop, he decided to test and flip against the guys. He even wore a wire. Now, I remember seeing him on the stand. He was pretty nervous. I mean, obviously, you've got a guy like Mike Sarno sitting at the defense table staring across from you, as well as high-ranking outlaw Mark Polchin staring at you. Now, this guy, if you see him in court, you would never guess he was an outlaw guy. So back to this rat, because that's what he is. James Fermato, he testified that the first time he committed a burglary on duty was his neighbor. He was a senior citizen. He went for a welfare check, started a case in the place, and thought, oh, this would be a good place to rob. He goes back 2 hours later with an accomplice, another corrupt Berwyn cop, and they robbed the guy's house. Now, who robs a neighbor's house while you're a police officer? He also testified that on several house calls where they would get a call for a break-in or domestic, they would pretend to take the report, but they were really casing the house for anything of value, jewelry, guns, drugs, cash. And if there was anything of value, Fermato, the corrupt cop, would tip off Mark Polchman or maybe Sarno or Robin Denzel or his son. They would tip off the crew. They'd rob the house, and then sell it through Goldberg Jewelers. That's where they would fleece it. Real piece of work, this guy. So 2004, right? Formato, his life is going downhill. His slut wife cheats on him. He's all depressed. Turns to drugs. Starts doing a lot of blow. Is in big time hack and gambling debts. He's committing crimes. Part of a very violent crew linked to the Chicago mob, right? You can imagine the stress. 2 years later, the feds confront him about his involvement in the crew, the jewelry heist. These guys netted close to $2 million. Right? They weren't just robbing residential areas. City of Chicago, surrounding suburbs, even some of the small hillbilly towns in the Midwest. Somewhat of a sophisticated crew that was stealing the goods, selling them through Goldberg Jewelers. Allegedly, Sarno was the crew getting a kickback. But the evidence linking to Mike Sarno, I thought, was a little weak. Most of the evidence was against Mark Polchin. So Formato goes on to testify that he used to also deliver cash to various restaurants, bars, nightclubs, people. He would provide law enforcement with information on members of the Chicago outfit, basically giving them a who's who of mob guys, associates, all while working as a Berwyn cop, kind of working as a double agent. So 2 years later, they confront him. He decides to flip and cooperate. But not only does he cooperate, he wears a wire. He's on tape telling Mark Polchin that he has resources that tell him the FBI has the entire crew under surveillance. So just to show you the involvement of corruption that this guy was involved in. There's a federal investigation going on, and a Berwyn cop is tipping off the crew that they're onto him. But Polchin wasn't too concerned, believe it or not. He underestimated the feds because he said on tape, well, we're not involved in drugs. There's no guns. Nobody got hurt. No violence. All we're doing is moving a few things around. But he underestimated the feds. Fast forward. We know the story. There were some issues. Sarno had a rival with that low-life VD. I did the story you can check out. He was warned repeatedly to remove his machines out of certain restaurants. He would not back down. He disrespected the large guy, Mr. Sarno here. A couple weeks later, according to the government, Mark Polchin, Samuel, a couple of the government snitches, Kyle Knight, Mark Hay, they blew up a storefront. Nobody got hurt. But that got the attention of the ATF, and the case got a lot bigger. That's where the crew fucked up by doing this. He testified. He was on one of his calls, if you will, probably casing another place, and he heard the explosion a few blocks away, and he said the whole house shook. He also provided security for the crew when they were doing scores with walkie-talkies and transmitters. He was snitching on fellow officers. Of course, robbing drug dealers, robbing stash houses. What else do corrupt cops do? He has a real piece of work. Here's the lawyer. Great lawyer, by the way, one of the top defense attorneys in Chicago. I highly recommend him. I ran into him at the Who concert. This is Damian Sharonis. He represented Mark Polchin. The judge, Ron Guzman, and he played it pretty coy because during the trial, he allowed Sarno free on bond, right? He even allowed Sarno's family to go out and have a nice steak dinner during the Christmas time. However, once Mike Sarno sadly was convicted, he immediately reprimanded his bond and took him into custody. And that pissed off Mike Sarno's family. They started yelling at the judge, crying. It was like a funeral in there. Sadly, all the defendants were found guilty. Mark Polchman was shocked. He was given a sentence of 60 years. He was literally shocked with the sentence. Because again, no guns, no drugs, no violence. Basically stolen goods. Buying and selling stolen goods. Big deal. The insurance covers a lot of that. But it was the bombing charge. They said they had a witness that claimed he was driving the van that dropped off the bomb. But that wasn't concrete evidence. But it was the bombing. That's automatic 25 years. Through informants like Fermato, repeatedly would refer to Mike Sarno as the boss. Same thing with the master blaster. He was on tape as well, bragging about the bomb that he built, how he put 2 wicks in the bomb. He actually admitted building the bomb. He talked about Tony Accardo, Mad Sam DeStefano. He was pissed off at the largest crew because he wasn't getting paid. He was talking about he should have been with the Franzo's crew. They wanted him because he wasn't a beefer. But check out the story you guys could in the other show I did. So all the defendants were found guilty based on Fermato's testimony. There was another corrupt Cicero cop, but he pled guilty. You had Kyle Knight, Mark Hay, 2 of the biggest lowlights you ever met that were part of this crew. So this was kind of like it always blows my mind that why smart, savvy Chicago outfit guys, you think they would know better than to associate with lowlifes like this or guys like Mark Hay or Kyle Knight. Now, talk about the judge, right? Guzman. No-nonsense judge. All these federal judges are normally pro-prosecution. So Ronald Guzman sentenced Fermato. He gave him 4 years in prison, 47 months. Been worked out in a plea agreement in return for his cooperation. In his guilty plea, he did show a little bit of remorse. Fermato was 45 years old at the time. He admitted that he fucked up, that his life was in the toilet. He talked about, again, kind of playing the victim role, that his wife, who was a slut, cheated on him. He got involved in alcohol and drugs. He got in some gambling issues. He was all stressed out. He kind of portrays himself as a victim. He said that he went rogue, and that was not his plan in life. He also went on to say that, he never had a father. His father, I forgot to mention, was Chicago outfit associate. He would often he would drive down to Florida, delivering $150,000 in cash of drug money that the crew would generate. So Fermato would deliver his mobbed up father drug money once or twice a year. I don't know where they get these lowlights from. All the defendants were found guilty. As I said, Mark Polchman, he was shocked, 60 years. Thank God, though, he got it reduced to, say, 30. He's probably been in there just under 20. Hopefully he'll come home. This man is no longer a threat to society. His Chicago mob connections, allegedly, are way behind him. He needs to come home and spend the remaining time with his family. His son, his grandchildren, his wife need him to come home. Without the government's low-life informants, Kyle Knight, Mark Hay, James Formato, this man would not have been serving decades in prison. There's no reason he needs to be in prison that long. He served enough time. It's time for Mark Poltron to come home. Same thing with Mike Sarno. They had the least amount of evidence against Mike Sarno. But again, when you got the informants like James Formato trying to get Sarno on tape while he's wearing a wire, trying to get him to incriminate himself, when you got everybody referring to Sarno as the boss, they had the motive. It was the bombing that really fucked Sarno up. But this man is no longer a threat to society. He's got all kinds of health issues. His Chicago outfit days are long gone. It's time to bring him home on compassionate release. There's no reason this man deserves to be locked up in prison. Sammy ended up dying. His son, I'm sure, is still alive. Hopefully he's behaving himself. But again, my heroes, my cousin James Bell, my father, Korean War combat veteran, James Torello, upcoming boss, Marine, World War II, my rat, Berwyn Cobb, James Formato, part of a burglary crew, committing scores themselves, providing tips, working as a lookout, benefiting, robbing drug dealers, stash houses, letting the crew know that the feds were onto him, trying to get Mark Poltron on tape, trying to get Sarno on tape, ratted him out. It's because bringing $150,000 of drug money down to his Florida. Judge gives him 4 years, but with his cooperation, all the defendants are found guilty. If you guys like my Chicago mob trial stories, hit the like button, subscribe, share with your friends. Stay tuned. I got much more. I'm working on setting up a couple interviews. I'm going to do a story about this guy right here. We're going to call him Cowboy. This guy was so pissed off he wanted to personally kill Jack Kennedy. We're going to talk about him. High-ranking Chicago outfit guy you never hear about. We're also going to talk about ATM. This is a little crew. They rob this drug dealer, 4, 5, 6 times a year. Every time they robbed them, they always found hundreds of thousands of dollars, so they called him ATM. If you guys like my stories, hit the like button, subscribe, and share with your friends. And don't be like this guy, corrupt cop, and rat on your friends. If you don't like my Chicago stories, hit the like button anyways. Ciao.